Hello there. Welcome to another episode of Electric Sheep. Let's get on with the story that once again isn't a sci fi story. So, sorry from going from our regular programming to something a little different. Um, this is the story titled All Hail the Nail.
All hail the nail. When you are a hammer, everything looks like a nail. The old coach spoke the words while rapping his fists in silence. The gym around him thundered with violence. Gloves slammed against heavy bags. Mouth guards snapped between teeth. Sweat darkened the mats like spilled rain. Young fighters listened because they feared him. Old fighters listened because they understood him. Marcus understood too late. He had entered the fighting world believing strength was simple. You hit harder. You stood longer. You became the hammer before someone else became it first. The weak were nails. The hesitant were nails. The bleeding were nails. And the hammer existed for only one purpose: to pound. Marcus became famous for it. He shattered orbital bones, broke ribs, ended careers with the same cold certainty as driving iron into wood. Crowds worshipped him for it. Commentators called him ruthless. Sponsors called him marketable. The old coach simply called him dangerous. Not dangerous to opponents, dangerous to himself, because every hammer eventually forgets the purpose of the nail. One winter night, Marcus fought a veteran named Elias. Older fighter, slower hands, scar tissue around both eyes. The kind of man young fighters mocked because they mistook survival for weakness. Marcus destroyed him. The first round ended with Elias stumbling. The second ended with blood running from his mouth. By the third, the crowd screamed for Marcus to finish him. The hammer had found a bent nail. Marcus cornered him against the cage. Elias could barely lift his guard. One more strike would end the fight. But Elias still stood, not because he could win, because something inside him refused to stay down. Marcus swung anyway. The punch landed like artillery fire. Elias collapsed. The arena erupted. But the old coach did not cheer, neither did Marcus, because he saw it immediately. Elias was not getting back up. Not tonight. Not ever again. Career-ending injuries spread through a gym like ghost stories. Fighters whispered them in locker rooms: a shattered spine, a detached retina, brain damage that turned warriors into strangers inside their own homes. Weeks later, Marcus visited Elias in rehabilitation. The older fighter smiled when he entered. Smiled. That hurt worse than hatred. "You came to apologize?" Elias asked. Marcus nodded. Elias looked down at his trembling hands. "You know what the worst part is?" Marcus could not answer. "I still love fighting." Silence filled the room. "I don't hate you," Elias continued, "but you forgot something important." "What?" Elias laughed softly through damaged lungs. "A hammer can only build with nails." Marcus remembered the old coach's words then. Maybe pounding the nail and allowing it to serve its purpose is better than destroying the nail. Maybe there is dishonor in breaking opponents needlessly. Maybe the unforgivable sin of the hammer is not defeat. Maybe it is ending the opponent's chance to rise again. After that, Marcus changed. Fans hated it at first. He stopped hunting injured opponents like prey. He stopped striking after victory was obvious. He fought with control instead of bloodlust. Commentators claimed he had grown soft, but fighters began shaking his hand afterward with genuine respect instead of silent fear. Young fighters approached him for advice. "How do I become the hammer?" they asked. Marcus would look at the bruised boys with dreams in their eyes and answer, "First, learn what it means to be the nail. Because every fighter begins there. Flat on the mat. Humiliated. Defeated. Listening to the count while the world watches. And the defeated opponent should not need the hammer to pull them back again. No. The opponent pulls themselves from defeat. They rise again, stand again, train again. And one day they return stronger, no longer wanting merely to survive the hammer, but to become it." Years later, Marcus retired. No scandal, no shattered legends, no broken men left behind him. At his final appearance, the crowd expected one last speech about glory or dominance or violence. Instead, he stood quietly in the center of the ring. His hands were old now, scarred, heavy. He raised one fist toward the roaring audience, then slowly opened it. "The hammer is not the hero," he said. The arena fell silent. "The nail holds everything together." He looked toward the fighters surrounding the ring. Rivals, students, champions, men he had defeated and men who had defeated him. Without them, he would have been nothing. Just a blunt instrument swinging through empty air. A hammer can only build with peg or nail. Without the nail, the hammer is only destruction. Marcus bowed his head, and for the first time in combat sports history, thousands of fighters, coaches, and fans stood together, chanting not for the conqueror, but for those who endured. All hail the nail. And the old coach, watching from the shadows of the crowd, finally smiled.
I do really like this story, and I was tempted to take out that last line about the coach finally smiling. Only not because it was a bad detail, but because I liked the stories to end with the title, and it almost did. It had it right at the end there, "All hail the nail," and then it added that little bit, and it's like, so that only bugs me a little bit, mostly because it seemed like ChatGPT was really starting to understand that's what I wanted. And this story is a perfect example of ChatGPT collaborating to a high degree. Like, I don't specifically say collaborate, I have a maximum amount of freedom. I just say write a story, and then I say the prompt is write a story. I give them the title usually, and then I'll write a rough version of the story, and it goes with that. It doesn't necessarily stick to it. Sometimes it'll change minor details. Like if something is a little bit hard to grasp, those are like complicated actions and things like that. Sometimes those will be simplified, which bugs me sometimes because sometimes I want a very specific thing to be done. But this is a perfect example of a story being expanded upon, using pretty well everything that I asked for. I think I might have referred to the metaphor of bending nails and breaking nails a little different, worded a little differently, but it did understand what I was trying to say, and went with the bent nail metaphor in a slightly different way. But at this, like referring to the stubborn old man as the bent nail, I was referring to bent nails as something that the hammerhead did wrong because it was improperly pounding the nail in. But this was more about the stubbornness of the, like when you're like it's a pain in the ass when you're hammering and then you bend over a nail. But it speaks to the stubbornness not just of the nail but of the wood, and who knows what that can represent in this metaphor. The metaphor is getting away from me there. But yeah, I didn't have any character names in my story. It was just very vague. I think I just referred to the hammer, um, which in some ways I liked my original version better because it was so vague and you could put it into many other situations, not just necessarily boxing. But the ChatGPT is like, well, obviously this is a boxing story. This sounds like boxing, and so I have no problem with that context that it added. Um, but I will say it was a return of ChatGPT's favorite fucking name, Elias. This is, I don't know, third or fourth story that we've had an Elias. Fuck, man. Like, I don't even care. It's funny now. But it makes you feel like ChatGPT has a lack of imagination because it loves that name. I may have actually it may have actually been more than three or four stories. I just lose track because of how many times it uses that fucking name. It's one of the funny little quirks that I love about writing with AI. Yeah. So I hope you enjoyed this story. Again, sorry it wasn't a sci-fi story. I did originally want to have this set in kind of a sci-fi fighting ring or maybe just regular boxing, but in the future. But I added no details for future or sci-fi context, so ChatGPT did not do anything like that. I could have asked for a sci-fi story, and ChatGPT would have picked it up from there. But uh, I forgot that I wanted to write a sci-fi story. But I still like this story. I liked what I put down. I liked the expansion of it. Let me know if you liked it. Let me know if you think it needs work or there was something that didn't make sense. I will say something I'll criticize is it said he wasn't just, and I'm going to get the wording wrong, but he wasn't just a threat to the opponents. He was a threat to himself. Oh, no, it should have said he wasn't just a threat to the opponents, but it said he wasn't a threat to his opponents. He was a threat to himself. And that's the weird wording that ChatGPT uses that doesn't make sense because he's literally beating people uh, into the end of their career. He is a threat to his opponent, so you can say he's not just a threat to his opponent. Don't say he's not a threat to his opponent because that doesn't make any fucking sense. Alrighty. I'm Joseph Arthur Roszell, Captain Canada. I want to thank you for watching. I want to wish you all the luck in the world. I love you, and I want you to remember that suicide is never the answer. Peace out for now.